I am
Oh,
an independent journalist, but some of the people coming from Spain have been subsidized. So there is a bigger coverage. Having people available, okay, the football season has started in Spain, that the sports pages are just full of football again, but because you have somebody in London and doing something in the Paralympics, it gives you a bit of space, more space. I've been publishing regularly, for example, with the exception of 2 days, I have published a story every day. I think it works very well for. It works better for newspapers. That is my specialty than the Olympics. I think the Olympics is a television thing, and television kills off a lot of the shine and a lot of the enthusiasm of the stories. While this, I don't think is such a great television. And then what is interesting here is always the full story, the complete story of the sport and the person behind. So it is good for newspaper, I think, and people are not saturated by watching every sport and I think that, to me, that was the thing that I look. I have done Olympics in the past, Atlanta, Barcelona, Sydney, but Paralympics I had never done it before. So to me it was something new, something a challenge. I'm going to be able to learn something, no? And to deal with people and what is it? And
what did you learn as a journalist from the Paralympics?
The competition is rubbish. The competition in itself is just the whole thing of classification is at the heart of these games. And I published today an interview with the director of medical and scientific director, Peter van der Wilt, in the International Paralympic Committee, and on the classification. Probably readers of the newspaper in Spain, they said, "This guy, what is he talking about? They are not familiar." My learning has been that this is. I am going to watch tonight this swimmer that is a man with cerebral palsy, with restricted movement in great part of the body. The guy competing with him and making better marks, better records, is a guy with paraplegic, sitting in a chair. The guy on the other side that made the third best time this morning is a guy with an amputation in the arm. So
that's what I've seen with swimming.
The competition is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. It's not worth.
But they already have so many classes.
Yes.
They can't make any more classes, right? So
yes, and they are even shrinking classes because the number of medals and all that. And so it is something that you say, well, I think what I have learned is that there are things that I don't like. As simple as I went to a 5-5 football, and I don't like people having a clash of faces because they cannot see each other, blind people. So they are having a great time. I'm sure you can have it, but I don't want to watch it. It is extremely difficult what they do, the movement, the awareness of a space, and all that. Unbelievable. It's not a great show. It's not great football, what you see. And I don't like seeing classes of people who are just find it. They like it. They have a great time. I didn't have a great time. I went to watch boccia, and so there are things that I don't like, and there are things that require your full attention. So that these Paralympics makes you go slower. The whole thing, you go slower, then you sit down there, and you say, at the beginning you say, this is rubbish as a sport, was a game. And then you get into the intricacies, and you say, bloody hell, how difficult is what they are doing, and you admire the challenges. To me, that is the question of classification and the question of appreciation when you are, not on television probably, but when you are a spectator looking at something, suddenly you appreciate the enormous difficulty of what they are doing.
How did you like boccia?
I wouldn't pay a ticket to watch boccia if I had known somebody that I knew. If I as a person that I know and all that, I will go and support and all that. I was moved to more than with any other thing. I entered there, and there was a woman, a Spanish woman with cerebral palsy, with a lot of spastic movement, really, looking to me out of control. And then I saw what she was doing, and I started to understand the competition between herself and a Swedish guy, really paralyzed in movement and all that. And first, that is the awareness of the state of both of them, the bodies of both of them, and then the development of the game was really very interesting. At the end, the game was decided in the last throw, in the last ball, and it was just I got into the
Was it
game.
exciting for you?
It was at the end. I was excited about the bloody game between the two of them, and then to see the joy, the way they treated each other, and I managed to speak with her. I would need a lot more time to have some semblance of proper communication.
Did you make a story about her?
Yeah. My story was Boccia and goalball as games that were only for Paralympics. And then I found in her the vehicle for the story. Yeah. And with goalball, because Spain didn't go through, I watched China against Lithuania, and I found it not very interesting. A game very limited tactically. I think for development of the game, I cannot see great development. Maybe people who are bigger, they can throw the ball with more speed and all that, but tactically, it's a game who has very little scope, in my completely naive assessment. So I saw in Boccia more sophistication in a way. I got more into the game, maybe because I found an athlete that I could relate more personally. I say, this is from Logroño. It's not far from home. Who is this woman? What has happened to her? So all that thing becomes
So
personal.
you think a big part of the Paralympics is that you see a story behind every athlete, that they are more individual than other swimmers?
I like the idea of the complete person. I like the idea, okay, if you like with Usain Bolt, you see the fast runner, and maybe you don't like the complete person. You find the complete person, the attitudes, behavior, egotism and all that, and you simply admire the fastest runner on earth. And you split. In professional sport, you split personality with the skills, And here you find the whole. I think nearly in everything that I have done, I was attracted by the whole thing.
You made a story about the women playing boccia. How do you think how did you make this story? Was it different from making a normal story about an athlete, Olympian athlete, for example?
Absolutely. There were people who wrote to me saying that how could I dare to offend her, what I wrote. I don't care at all. People can write anything online. I don't care at all. I have so much respect for her. So I wrote to her. I sent the article saying people are saying that I am offending you, me offending you. I mean, how could I possibly offend her?
Was it difficult for you to make the story?
No, it was very simple because it was actually describing, I think, the only possible way to say, okay, I come here, I come to watch this thing, trying to understand this thing. Somebody explained to me, a player that was going away, a Spanish guy who just, when I arrived there, had finished the game, was like, what is Boccia? I explained to him, I just arrived here. It's all right, Boccia looks like petanque, but he opened the box, he gave me the balls and all that. We had a conversation. So with that, I entered. That is my story. I entered the competition area, and then I found this woman. When I see this woman is unable to hold a ball, to throw it around, and you think they have brought her here as an act of compassion, and more than anything else. And then you start to appreciate what she is doing, and she is actually throwing the balls, and she is doing all these details, and at the end of the game comes to the last ball, and then she just explodes in joy and all that. So that was the story, was my experience as a spectator. So somebody found offensive the idea that I watched at the beginning. I said, what is she doing here? I don't find it at all offensive. That no, it's
Yeah.
so that was the thing, and that actually you could get into this thing as I did. While in goalball, I was thinking about the limitations of the game, the tactical limitations of the game, and that interesting, very good for the bodies of people who have to stretch themselves, and awareness of movement and all that in terms of the game is good for health.